The real red terror comes from your loved one. The real red terror doesn't come from the government. It comes from the people closest to you, your so-called family and friends. This is my story, a decade-long journey that turned me from a hopeful, independent believer in justice into someone battling severe depression, stripped of faith in fairness, and labeled as mentally ill. Why am I making this video in such a serious tone? Because the relentless, real yet unreal red terror has shaped every aspect of my life. Let's start from the beginning. 2014. A dream that turned into a nightmare. In August 2014, I arrived in Canada for graduate school, excited to start my research. But my assigned professor, an Iranian woman, had no real expertise in drug delivery systems. She misled me into thinking I'd be working on pharmaceutical formulations, but she lacked even basic physiology knowledge. She forced me to take graduate-level quantum chemistry, which was irrelevant to my field. Even chemistry students gave up, but I, a pharmacy student, was expected to survive. When I struggled, she spread false accusations and manipulated my GPA, controlling my funding. I sought help from a Chinese professor who had once assured me I could count on him. But when I reached out, he dismissed me as not working hard enough. Desperate to escape, I found a one-year college program that could help me transition into a job. But I was short on tuition. I had only $6,000 CAD, and the fees were $10,000. So I turned to my family. Family betrayal. The beginning of the red terror. My mother, who once promised to sell the house if necessary to support me, suddenly claimed she had no money. That was the moment my willpower shattered. One Friday, on the bus to school, I suddenly lost all motivation to fight. I thought, maybe I should just let myself rot away. Maybe that would be the best revenge on my mother in this cruel world. That was the day I fell into severe depression. Instead of helping me, my university pushed me out. They restricted my access to most campus facilities, allowing me only to visit the counseling center. They asked if I had any plans, if I needed their help to transfer to another program. Still in shock, I refused their help, naively believing I could find a solution on my own. But I couldn't. With no other options, I took a leave of absence and returned to China for medical treatment. Home was no refuge. It was hell. Coming back home wasn't a relief, it was another nightmare. The first thing I saw upon entering my childhood home was hundreds of cockroaches running freely across the living room. There was no bug spray. My room was locked. The bathroom was unusable. So, after a long flight back to a so-called home, I found myself sitting in the hallway, waiting for my father to buy insecticide. I spent the night in my father's filthy, unwashed bed, and when I needed to wash up, I had to heat water in a kettle, pour it into a basin, and use a towel, just like people did in China decades ago. I knew I couldn't stay. My parents couldn't even afford my medication, and I couldn't live in filth while battling depression. So I went back to the city where I had studied, found a job teaching at an international school, and threw myself into work. I needed money for rent, for food, but most importantly, for my medication. Without it, I couldn't function. This was the cycle I was trapped in. Work, right pointing arrow, earn money, right pointing arrow, buy medicine, right pointing arrow, work. The pandemic and the final push out of China. For years, I survived. But then everything changed. The pandemic hit, the economy collapsed, students dropped out, international schools shut down. Then came China's double reduction policy, which killed off most of the private education sector. I lost my job. I had no income, no way to pay for my medication. I had to leave. But as soon as I tried to build a life abroad, my mother once again stood in my way. I started a YouTube channel, trying to share my experiences and insights. Then the Chinese internet police found me. My 8th subscriber was a government agent. Soon after, I was called to the police station for tea. Thankfully, this happened in Guangzhou, where the police chief let me go after a brief interrogation. I knew I had to leave China before it was too late. Fighting for freedom against my own family now, I'm in a different country, trying to rebuild my life. But my mother still haunts me. She claims she had a nightmare that the government would take away her pension because of my videos. She demands that I stop speaking out. But what about me? I still have medical bills to pay, rent, food, basic survival. I tried to be a good, obedient citizen. I really did. But no matter how much I compromised, they never left me a way out. And the saddest part? The government wasn't even my biggest enemy. It was my so-called loved ones. The real Red Terror, when people talk about Red Terror, they often blame the government. But the government doesn't need to personally hunt you down. Your family will do it for them. Your friends, your neighbors, the people who claim to love you, they will be the first to report you, to silence you, to betray you, all in the name of loyalty to the state. If one day the government decides to target me, the first ones to sell me out will be my own family. That is the true Red Terror. And that is the reality of living in a system where fear turns loved ones into executioners. Final words, this is my story. A story of betrayal, survival, and the fight for freedom. If you've ever felt trapped, if you've ever been betrayed by those closest to you, know that you are not alone. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I will keep fighting. Because silence is not an option.